Okay, it is live. God, this is the worst with the lighting.
I like preparing on camera. That's fun.
It's very annoying having to prepare on camera. Absolutely. I did tweet YouTube about the fact that you cannot preview the videos, and they just told me to send a review or whatever. Hi, everyone. Hope you guys are having a good night. Not send a review, but like send a whatever the fuck it's called.
They don't listen to them anyway. What do you want us to send them?
It's bots. So, as you can see,
very quickly. Welcome to Murder Talk Radio.
I'm Viktoria Evans, as you know.
Parker Evans.
And this video, Music Scene Predators, was brought to us by all of the comrades out there who decided to chime in about our previous Steve Albini video. The problem with Steve Albini.
Yeah, no rants about communism today. We're going to save the rant for next time. We actually have an entire live stream that we're going to do devoted entirely. But we do have this lovely shirt so that you can still be triggered out during this, just in case you don't get triggered out over the fact that we're talking about child predators, because that seemed to upset many of you as well.
Hi, Roger. AABB.
Those of you who weren't upset about the communism rant were upset that we were talking about a child predator who made music that you liked. We know that's the more important thing, is the music that you liked, not the victimized children, the music.
That was very shocking. Before we get into this, I do want to make a comment about that. It was very surprising to me the number of people when we made that Steve Albini video and talked about Peter Sotos and Christopher Hall, the number of people who, well, someone actually came back.
Just today.
Yeah, just today somebody compared our article on that to child pornography.
Oh, that was yesterday. I thought you were talking about the guy. The guy today said that Peter Sotos' work was all fiction, which obviously is why he was sent to federal prison, because it was fiction. The photos of the abused dead children, those were fiction, fictional real life photo. No, I can't turn my chair. There's a thing here.
I hate this setup so much. One day, if we actually have money, we'll fix all of this for you. But we don't.
We're working on it.
All right. You want to start?
Sure. We started this right after we started working on the Albini article. One day I said, hey, why just Albini? Maybe we should do a second article about all the other shitbags in music. I'm supposed to curse less this time. I probably shouldn't have said that. All the other rock stars, I'll just say instead, who have abused children or preyed on children or had questionable activities surrounding children or teenagers. A lot of them were teenagers and not little kids. And I know some people don't make a big distinction of that, but I genuinely like, there's something extra wrong with people who prey on little kids. Like, preying on anybody's bad. You shouldn't prey on adults. You shouldn't prey on teenagers. But if your impulse is to prey on a 6-year-old, there's something extra wrong with you, and you should probably not be here with us anymore.
It is unfortunate because there's the whole thing of like separating the art from the artist. And there are people who we're just such big fans of. And I know a lot, like they have hundreds of thousands, if not some of them millions of fans worldwide. You know,
a lot of the people we're going to be talking about today have millions and millions and millions of fans worldwide. In fact, one of them I know for a fact just won a Actually, I said just, but it was during the Obama administration, so it wasn't just. But they were awarded some kind of medal for like a lifetime achievement award, and we'll be discussing them today. Jimmy Page.
It's really unfortunate.
My favorite guitarist.
And that's why, honestly, it was so shocking to get such backlash with people like basically calling us assholes or whatever. We're like, we're disappointed too. We are also fans.
I'm disappointed in everybody who said we were some kind of asshole for talking about someone who literally, in these close to these exact words, said that he described himself as a voyeur of child sexual abuse material. He didn't use that phrase, but that's what he said.
Yeah, essentially what, for this video, we decided to start off talking about groupies, and we're kind of making the distinction between age groups and also going back to kind of the 70s, where a lot of this behavior was not only more acceptable, but groupies were way more of a thing. And just making the distinction between like someone who preys on 6-year-olds and then, you know, the difference between like a 14 or 15-year-old girl who goes to a show because she is like obsessed with the band, and then, you know, of her own volition decides
in this case,
to like
wants the people in this story not only go to a show and of their own volition decide that they're going to engage in sexual relations with an artist, but goes to the show specifically looking to engage in some kind of sexual activity. But you are somewhat mistaken. We actually start before all of that, because in the article, which is that linked in the description? I didn't think to check. In the article that's linked in the description, I give a brief history of how this all happened, because, you know, prior to just before the turn of not this century, but last century, around the 1880s, nobody cared about kids at all. And there was a guy named William Thomas Stead. He was a journalist in England.
This is a crazy story.
He wrote for, I have it written down here somewhere, the Pall Mall Gazette, which some of you might confuse for the cigarette brand. They weren't sponsored, as far as I know, by Pall Mall cigarettes. They were just the Pall Mall Gazette. He wrote for the Pall Mall Gazette, and he decided that he was going to do something about child prostitution in England, which at that time was very common. And so he came up with this idea, kind of political theater of the kind that we know today. And what William Stead did was he prepared a series of articles called, he gave it a weird title like I would, nothing, the Maiden Tribute of Modern Babylon. That is right out of I absolutely would title an article something like that.
Yeah, you have.
And people would be like, why did you title it as Done Man? Anywho, so what William Stead did was he actually went out and he bought a 13. Audio is messed up. How? What's it doing? I'll pause while we try and figure out if the audio is actually screwed up. Is that, are we on the mic?
Absolutely not.
Oh, lagging. Nothing I can do about that. That's not us. That's YouTube.
I was going to say that's.
Yeah, I don't think we have any control over that. That's unfortunate.
If it's lagging and it's not synced, that is absolutely a YouTube thing. That's not us.
I'll pause and tell a weird YouTube story. Last week, we had a weird audio thing that we noticed. And we're in an upstairs office area that she uses, and I have an office area downstairs that I use, and I have huge monitor. I call them monitors. They're, speakers for audio engineering, audio monitors. And I play guitar there and stuff, and I was playing guitar and I noticed I turned my Kemper on and I started to play along with a backing track, and nothing was in tune. And I checked the tuning of the guitar and it wasn't in tune. And I tried a different backing track, thinking maybe it was screwed up, didn't work. And then I played a video on the Victoria Evans YouTube channel, and it sounded slowed down. Like there was something wrong with it. It's her voice, but it didn't sound like her. I was like, what the hell's going on
Yeah,
with
I
this?
sounded like Elizabeth Holmes.
You sounded like a man pretending to be Elizabeth Holmes.
A man pretending to be Elizabeth Holmes, trying to sound like a man.
It was like if she was talking like this.
It was really weird.
Yeah, it was really
super
weird. I thought it was my computer, and I spent probably 45 minutes trying to figure it out. And then it fixed itself. I didn't do anything to the computer. I've been fixing computers since I was 12. I didn't do anything. I started to do diagnostics, and it fixed itself. It was YouTube. I don't know what exactly, but something on YouTube. It just screwed everything up. Sort of like the Polk Audio. Yeah. Mine are Yamahas, but yeah, pretty much. 8s, Yamaha 8s, HS8s. Anywho.
Roger says that the audio is like a dubbed Chinese movie.
It was like a dubbed Chinese movie when we had the issue last week too. So if we sound screwed up, I don't know, maybe YouTube's got a problem with their codec, or Google's changing something behind the scenes, or I don't know.
But it might be the live, and then the playback will be fine. And then, of course, we do this as a dual purpose. So this is going to be edited down into a Murder Talk Radio episode. So hopefully there's not too bad of an issue with the audio, but we're trying to work with like downloading a different interface to use for the lives, because YouTube sucks.
Yeah, we're
very grateful for the YouTube, but also, good God, please, Google, sell it to somebody.
I really think it needs to be spun out. Google, a lot of the decisions remind me of some of my experiences in corporate America, where I describe it to her as it's very common for extreme upper management to have no earthly idea what's happening with the company or with the customers, or what people want from the company, and the people who are a little bit lower in the company who are actually running the operation, who have direct experience with the customers, who do know what's going on. Yeah, exactly. YouTube was cool before Google got involved, and I feel like a lot of the decisions that are being made are just Google lurching from like perceived threat to perceived threat. We were talking last night because we downloaded OBS to install OBS, which we did. Now, because we are using her Mac for this, we have to upgrade the operating system on the Mac because, okay. What was I saying?
We were talking about the Mac operating system. Sorry, your voice it's very deep, and sometimes it is very painful.
I can project more if that helps.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, I feel like Google is making a lot of those decisions. And when I say Google, I mean Google, not YouTube. So the shorts, for instance, tell them about the thing with the shorts, the looping thing that you discovered last week.
Oh, yeah. So then let's get on topic.
Yeah.
This isn't that interesting, in my opinion.
It's a little interesting. It's really weird.
This is so dumb. So YouTube created shorts, and if you want to upload a video on YouTube that is less than 60 seconds, you can't. It automatically makes it a short. You don't have a choice. Now, the shorts, if it's, say you want to make it 30 seconds long, 45 seconds long, that doesn't work. YouTube will automatically loop your video. So I learned this on one of the Israel Keys AI enhancement, like before and afters shorts that I made. On the first one, you see it loop, and then the video loops by starting over again. So it like duplicates it. It's so dumb. So what I learned is that you basically have to make your video 58 seconds, and then it will actually end when you want it to, and it's not, YouTube won't create extra time. But if you make your video 60 seconds, it cuts off the end of it. It cuts off the last couple seconds. It makes no sense. YouTube needs serious help.
We were just talking last night about having to install OBS at all, because OBS now, which is a free tool that was developed, is 11 years old. Google has integrated none of the features into YouTube.
We were also talking about how we would love, we'll get to this more in the article, which we should get back to, but Almost Famous. We would love to be able to have like a watch party on YouTube and, you know, watch that or other true crime movies and stuff.
Wait. So here's what's crazy about this. Almost Famous is available, and it's linked in the article if you want to watch Almost Famous. It's on YouTube for free. You can watch it on YouTube for free. We can't watch it with you because Google doesn't have that feature.
It seems like a really obvious feature to have for YouTube.
It does. It does seem like an obvious feature to have YouTubers be able to watch movies that are available on YouTube for free with people who are watching the YouTubers on YouTube. It's so obvious. It just makes me want to punch myself in the face that they haven't done it. They can't punch YouTube in the face. They're not here. Anyway, back to the article. So we do a whole Murder Talk Radio just complaining about YouTube. And we are grateful for the YouTube. I'm glad it's here. This is way cooler than doing like local access television. It was around when I was a kid. But, oh my God. Roll it out so that YouTube can fix itself, please. If any Google executive ever watches this, spin it off. You don't need the money. You get enough money. Let YouTube live. Set it free. Anyway, William Thomas Stead, journalist, he got this great idea to change the child prostitution laws, which there weren't any, in Great Britain. It's now the United Kingdom. And what he did was he went and he bought a 13-year-old girl from her parents. And he had her sent to a brothel. He had her examined to make sure she was still a virgin. And then professionally, because that was a service that was available at the time. And then he had her sent to a brothel where she was lightly drugged. And then he entered the room, immediately left the room. He gave her into the care of the Salvation Army, and he wrote these articles, a series of articles titled The Maiden Tribute of Modern Babylon. And it created a furor in Great Britain. Hundreds of thousands of people went out into the streets of London to demand that the laws be changed, and they were. That's where the modern age of consent laws originated. What William Thomas Stead started swept the entirety of the Western world, and all of a sudden people started caring about kids. They didn't before that, now they do. Go figure.
What an insane, like, undercover, like, story about a journalist. Like, it's investigation, it's like actively, it's just such a wild story. And just the fact that she was lightly drugged at a brothel and he like just walked in to say, hey, I was able to easily make this happen. If I wanted to, if I was a predator, I could have done this. Obviously he's not. And I don't know, I thought that was such a brilliant way to do it. And, you know, to have like child brides or, you know, selling children at age 13 or younger as the norm, I feel like the only way to change it is to do something drastic like that. And I didn't know that story before.
At the time, most places didn't have age of consent laws at all. Where there were age of consent laws, they tended to be what we would consider way, way too young, like 10 was kind of the average at the time. And by World War One, so that was about 1880. And by World War One, in most places in the West, the age of consent was in the mid-teens somewhere, 15, 16, in some places 18. And those are still the laws today. So thanks, William Thomas Stead.
I mean, I grew up in the Middle East, and I don't know that I was ever asked, but I know that my sister, like, we were in elementary school, like first grade, second grade, I'm talking about, and people asked to, like, hey, I remember they asked my father, and we had just moved to the Middle East, and my dad was like, so first of all, no. But secondly, out of curiosity, how exactly would that work?
I love listening to your dad tell the story.
So I just thought that was so fascinating because, it's sickening, but it's still like common practice in many parts of the world. Like people will ask, oh, when she gets her period, you send her to me, or when she's 15, whatever. And yeah, it's just horrifying. But to put that in the music scene where it's drugs, sex, rock and roll, a lot of that stuff gets convoluted. And then there are fans and like these big rock stars, larger than life people. And like their music is huge. They get to tour the world. It's like so glamorous. It just kind of puts people in a situation to like where they can easily take advantage of people.
To segue into this, somebody on Twitter, when I was tweeting about this, we were going to do the live, I mentioned that the article, I said, everybody from Elvis to Gary Glitter. And somebody responded to me and said, Elvis. But when Elvis met Priscilla, Elvis was 24 and Priscilla was 14. So that's a pretty big gap. And I know it was a different time. It was the 50s. But as I said to the gentleman on Twitter who said Elvis, and still. I think 14.
Nice little photo.
For me, the thing is, this is gonna sound like maybe weird and fucked up, but for me, the biggest thing that I don't understand about a 14-year-old is that a 14-year-old would annoy the shit out of me. I would just be telling them to shut the fuck up all the time. They'd be bouncing all over the place. I couldn't handle it.
That kind of brings me to...
Even at 24, I'd have been going, could you just chill? Just chill out.
I feel like a lot of 14-year-olds would be annoying as hell.
Almost all 14-year-olds are annoying as hell.
I want to say, though, kind of segueing into this, we will get into the Elvis Priscilla story in a second, but a lot of this has to do with the agency of the young women involved in these stories. How willing are they? And some of them were very willing, and though they aren't very mature, they might be annoying 14-year-olds. They still actively participated and made decisions and were okay with things that happened, and in fact, like facilitated those situations for themselves. And the reason we wanted to give examples and talk about stories like this is because so many people talk about the grooming of a 15-year-old, and sure, in some cases that does happen.
Absolutely.
But that's not what pedophilia actually is. And like, yes, I'm not saying that it's okay. I'm saying that there's a clear distinction, and it's been very like, what's the word? What?
I didn't like teenagers when I was a teenager either.
Oh, high cement shoes.
One of the things that I think is this is fairly common in artists. It's certainly a lot of the artists that I've known, some of the artists that I've been in bands with have sort of resembled this. But Elvis, when he met Priscilla was described as regressing to a childlike state. And I think that's somewhat common for not they meet 14-year-olds and they regress, but a lot of artists have emotional problems. So, maybe they're emotionally 14, and that's part of the reason that they bond so well when they meet a 14-year-old Priscilla. I don't know.
Yeah.
So he met Priscilla at a party in Germany. And Priscilla's parents were upset because she came home really late. And they did the sort of classic 50s parent thing, like, you're never going to see that boy again. But then
that's what her mom sounded like.
They changed their minds. Maybe because he was the king. It's good to be the king.
Well, yeah, I thought it was funny because after Priscilla talked to her parents a little bit, they changed their mind.
Yeah, they
I like the
Elvis,
idea that they didn't realize who Elvis was.
They let him fly her to California.
Right, so they had a couple rules for Priscilla. They let her at 14 fly to California to stay with Elvis.
She was not,
but
she was a little older than that by then.
15?
She was 16, I think. They met in 59, that was in 62, right. So she would have been 17, 16, 17.
Right, so they met at 14, my bad, I'm sorry. And then a couple years later,
My dad says don't trust anyone under 30 and don't trust anyone over 30.
Oh, hi, Bernie Byrne.
Hey, I know they're saying hello, but I have to edit this later. And if you could not say hello to every single person that says hello, that I'm going to have to edit out when I edit this into a Murder Talk Radio that's not live, that'd be really neat. So yeah, they told Priscilla that she could go to California to spend time with Elvis as long as she got first class tickets and she had to have a chaperone. She had to have a chaperone. And chaperone, yes. A chap besides Elvis. And she had to write home every single day, which Elvis immediately figured out a way around and had her fill out a bunch of postcards, which he had his staff mail from Los Angeles, and they went off to Vegas. Have a fun time.
It's the most obvious way around that.
It is.
Just write 50 letters and my staff will take care of it.
If you have a staff, that's definitely the way to do it.
Though I will say, having a 17 or whatever she was year-old write home every day while you're in Los Angeles or wherever, Vegas with Elvis. Come on.
It does seem annoying and stupid.
Shut up.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
If you're gonna let her go, let her go.
Yeah, don't make her write home every day.
Write home every day.
You were just asking for her to
got parents. So they got married a couple of years after. They got married that was in 62. They got married in 67. And then by 73, they were divorced. And Priscilla said she didn't divorce Elvis because she didn't love him. She divorced him because she had to, this is a quote, find out about the world. And that's why you shouldn't fall in love with a child, because they don't know anything about anything, which is why they're annoying.
That honestly is
one of the reasons they're annoying.
Very common.
Yes.
People that get married, they're high school sweethearts. It's the only person they've ever dated ever. I'm that's not gonna work out for you unless you force yourself to stay together because divorce is wrong, you know what I mean? And then you're just miserable. But you have to experience things to understand what you want and don't want. And I thought that was interesting that Priscilla seemed mature enough to recognize that and that their divorce was amicable, apparently.
I have a corollary story to that, which is that my cousin actually married his high school sweetheart. And they just celebrated their, I think, 26th wedding anniversary, but they did like an interesting thing where they graduated from high school and then they broke up. They went off to college and they split up. And then after college, they got back together and got married, which is a very sweet story.
I think that is sweet. It's like, well, I saw the world.
I'm back. So after Elvis, we have Jerry Lee Lewis, who I saw someone in the comments mention Jerry Lee earlier. Jerry Lee married his first cousin once removed, whose name was Myra Gale Brown. She was 13 when they got married. Jerry Lee was 22. And apparently, even at that time, it was a little bit odd because he told people when he met them and they talked about it, he told people she was 15. So I guess 13 is a little on the fence there.
Right off the bat, he's lying about her age. You know there's something wrong. Not to mention they were related.
Cousins. Ironically, that wasn't a lot of it is a very famous story, but nobody cared in the United States. Like, oh, cousins? Yeah, whatever. But then he went to do a tour in England, and somebody in the press there got wind of it, and it destroyed the tour. He played, I think, 2 or 3 shows, and then he had to cancel the tour. It like destroyed his career. His career was never the same again after that.
I mean,
and again, just like Elvis, although it lasted a little bit longer, they got divorced in 1970. Brown said that she was subject to every type of physical and mental abuse imaginable in that relationship.
poor girl. Yeah. It's an unfortunate story.
There's a moral lesson in that, which is that you shouldn't marry your cousin.
There's that, but also like even in this picture, like there's such a massive difference between the photo, and I get that the ages were slightly different.
Slightly.
I'm not done. I was gonna say the ages were different comparing Elvis and Priscilla and then Jerry Lee Lewis and his 13-year-old cousin. So the age differences between the relationships, but just comparing, even looking at the photos, like she's a child. It's
Absolutely.
So sad. Like it's too much. It's disgusting. But yeah.
So after Jerry Lee, we have the man who is often called the father of rock and roll, Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry had a wild. Chuck Berry put the sex in sex, drugs, and rock and roll. He is like the quintessential pervert. Sorry, I was standing on the court. The quintessential pervert. In 1959, he got in trouble for bringing a 14-year-old waitress across state lines who he had sex with to work in his club. Convicted, fined, sentenced to prison. He appealed. He won the appeal. They tried him again. He was found guilty again. Got 3 years in prison. And he served, I think, a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. After that, he stayed out of trouble for about 20 years. But then in 1987, he assaulted a woman in New York at the Gramercy Park Hotel pretty badly. Lacerations of the mouth requiring 5 stitches, 2 loose teeth, contusions of the face. He paid a $250 fine for that. 3 years later, in 1990, he was sued because he installed a video camera in the women's bathroom of a restaurant that he owned. He claimed it was to catch a worker who he thought was stealing from him, which I don't believe. No. She's stealing in the bathroom. Is she stealing soap? Toilet paper?
Yeah, that was a bit wild.
When the police raided his house, they found a ton of videos of women, one of whom was apparently a minor, although detail on that was sketchy. And they also found 62 grams of marijuana. And because they found 62 grams of marijuana, they dropped the child abuse charges and they just charged him with marijuana possession. He got a 6-month suspended sentence for that. He later got in trouble for recording videos of himself urinating on a woman and another of the same woman defecating on him. Another interesting thing about Chuck Berry is although the song that's best remembered by Chuck Berry is Johnny Be Good, his best performing song was a song called My Ding-a-ling. The chorus for which is, I want you to play with my ding-a-ling.
Honestly, sometimes...
It's actually a good song.
Well, that's the thing. Like, some of the music is so damn catchy. You're singing along and you're like, what am I saying? You know what I mean?
I mean, it's also funny. It's like a pun. And
It is like funny innuendo. You're not really thinking like, he wants to piss on that minor over there. Like, you know what I mean? You're not thinking that. Like, so, and that's kind of what's shocking about a lot of this, that's really kind of, you know, this was after the fact, but the whole Steve Albini edgelording thing, people are like, he's just being shocking.
Yeah.
Or, you know, or not. Or he was telling the truth to your face.
Steven Tyler.
Oh.
Steven Tyler and Ted Nugent, actually. We'll get to Ted in a minute. I was accused of being a huge Ted Nugent fan for some reason during the brouhaha over Albini, which I thought was funny. But Steven Tyler got legal guardianship over a 16-year-old named Julia Holcomb in 1973. He was 25 at the time. They lived in Boston together doing drugs for a couple of years. There's a documentary about this, about sexual abuse in the music industry, but it features the story of Steven Tyler and Julia Holcomb. It's called Look Away.
I want to.
That is a hell of a suit.
It is.
Is he wearing a codpiece?
Probably. Anyway, she looks very uncomfortable. Just saying.
She filed a lawsuit that's still ongoing. He tried to have it dismissed, but it's still ongoing. His argument for having the lawsuit dismissed is that he was her guardian, so she should be able to sue him, which I'm not sure that that's going to hold up for him. And there was another girl who sued him as well. Her suit was thrown out. Her name was Jeannie Bellino. She was a teen model, and a judge ruled that in order to qualify for the New York Look Back law that she sued under, New York passed a law allowing children who were abused to sue even after the statute of limitations had expired. But the judge ruled that actual physical harm is required for that law, and that in the case of she and Steven Tyler, it didn't meet that bar. But in reference to Holcomb, if you've heard the very popular song Walk This Way, supposedly that song is a reference to Holcomb.
I'll read it if you want.
Please.
Schoolgirl sweetie with the classy, kinda sassy. Little Jesus. Little skirts climbing way up the knee. There was 3 young ladies in the school gym locker when I noticed they was looking at me. I was a high school loser, never made it with a lady, till the boys told me something I missed. Then my next door neighbor with a daughter had a favor, so I gave her just a little kiss.
Like this. So that brings us to Ted Nugent, who basically did the exact same thing. He got guardianship. Her parents essentially signed her over, just like William Stead.
Yep.
Almost 100 years earlier. Very similar.
Very.
Except that she was 17, I think. 17. Courtney Love claims that she gave Ted Nugent oral sex when she was 12. But a different time, she said she was actually 14. And there's another weird thing about Nugent, which is that in a Behind the Music episode, he said that he had several affairs with underage girls. And then later on an episode of Joe Rogan, he said that he'd only had relationships with underage girls when he was underage, presumably besides the one that he got legal guardianship over, which is documented on record. Although it kind of sounds like he's contradicting himself and his record there.
I will say that memory is faulty, but that should be something, especially documented. Something you don't forget. And I do want to say I love Courtney Love, but not very reliable. Let me tell you.
Not the most reliable narrator ever.
She contradicts herself a lot, not just about this. And it's also really, we actually talked about this when we first met, but we have read so many different biographies from musicians, and it is fascinating. Some of them in the same circles who like toured together tell the same story.
But differently.
Very different. Yeah, it's really interesting to see like the different details.
Yeah,
some people are like, he slept with her, he did this, and then
if you're a music fan, a really interesting thing to do, and I know because I've done it, go and find like every biography and artist autobiography that you can and read them all back to back to back to back to back. Because there's so many stories that overlap and they're so different. I don't have any examples off the top of my head. It was like 10 or 15 years ago that I did that, but it was fascinating. There was one, I don't remember the story, but there was an incident with Marilyn Manson went into a studio that 9 Inch Nails was also in at the same time. And they give like totally different, like just opposite ends of the spectrum, the way they tell the stories.
I just remember reading The Long Hard Road Out of Hell, which is by Marilyn Manson, and then reading Heavier Than Heaven, which, you know, obviously Kurt didn't write that. But
Charles Cross wrote Heavier Than Heaven.
Right, so it's just very interesting hearing. Those aren't exactly the same. The only kind of real overlap there is Courtney, because, you know, Hole toured with Manson and 9 Inch Nails. And wow, anyway, very different stories.
We'll get to that in a minute. Just to touch, and we'll come back to this in a minute too, but Steven Tyler comes up again because he had a child with one of the groupies who we're going to discuss in a second. But in order to segue to that, we're going to talk about my favorite guitarist, Jimmy Page. Jimmy had a very famous affair with a groupie named Lori Maddox. And he also had affairs with other teenage groupies who were part of a group that you may know from Almost Famous, where they were called the Band-Aids. In real life, they had a name for themselves, the Flying Garter Girls. So Maddox, when she was 13, she started going to clubs in LA, the Whiskey A Go-Go, the Rainbow Bar and Grill on Sunset in West Hollywood, with her friend Sable Starr. And in June 1972, Led Zeppelin was in town. They were touring North America, and Jimmy Page, who was 28 at the time, met 13-year-old Lori Maddox at a show. He became smitten with her, and she describes it. She said the relationship started when she was basically kidnapped by Led Zeppelin's tour manager, at the time Richard Cole, not their manager, who's Peter Grant, but their tour manager, Richard Cole, and was brought up to Page's hotel room. And Page apparently knew that the relationship wouldn't be looked upon very well and did his best to kind of keep it secret. They were together for 2 years. It ended in 1975. And Maddox claims she ended the relationship when she was 16 because she found Page in bed with another groupie named Bebe Buell, who Steven Tyler had a child with later. Buell gave a different version of that story, where
Very different.
Yeah, I just like lost my.
I'm sorry.
No, you didn't. You didn't do it. I'm just tired. This is a very, very long day for us. The end of a very long day, and we're both a little wiped out. So forgive us. So Maddox also had all of these, all of the women that we're about to talk about. They basically had slept with any. If there is a famous rock star from the classic rock era that you know, they probably had sex with one of these women.
Yeah, there was like
Maddox. Let's see. David Bowie. Well, he was on the Ziggy Stardust tour, and her friend Star also Bowie, and I think Dwell also Bowie. And let's see. Let me find the list.
I was gonna say.
There it is. You ready?
Yeah.
So here's the list for Maddox: Mick Jagger, Jeff Beck, Ronnie Wood, Mickey Finn, Angela Bowie, who is David Bowie's ex-wife, Keith Emerson, and Carl Palmer. It's not a complete list. I kept it towards the best known of the musicians. Sable Starr also slept with Iggy Pop, who wrote about her in a song called "Look Away," which is where the documentary we mentioned earlier got its title. And that's a picture of Iggy and Sable. Her real name was Sable Hayes Shields, but she went by Sable Starr. They all had nicknames. And the lyrics for the Iggy Pop song "Look Away." Do you want to do this one too?
Yeah, I wanted to say that she was 13 at the time, and she, in the song, it like straight up mentions that I slept with Sable when she was 13. Her parents were too rich to do anything. She rocked her way around LA till a New York doll carried her away.
That last line is a reference to Johnny Thunders from the New York Dolls, who she had a very tumultuous and unfortunate relationship with, which she described as Thunders tried to destroy my personality. After I was with him, I just wasn't Sable Starr anymore. He really destroyed the Sable Starr thing. Quote from her.
That was a really incredibly sad quote. Just have someone completely like take away your personality.
She got pregnant, and Johnny Thunders wanted to marry her after she got pregnant, and she had an abortion instead.
That says volumes about somebody when a rock star's like, I'll marry you, we can have this baby, and she's like, nope. Don't want to keep it, don't want to keep you, goodbye, leave me alone.
Yeah, she moved to Minden, Nevada, and became a table game dealer instead. And that's what she did for the rest of her life until she died of brain cancer at 51 in 2009.
So, next up, Steven Tyler's
baby mama.
Yeah. I want to say wife, and I'm like,
no, they weren't.
That's not right.
She married somebody else, which we'll get to in a minute. Bebe Buell does not like being called groupie. She rejects that term, but she dated a ton of musicians, beginning with Paul Cowsell of the Cowsells, which that's the band that the Partridge Family, the TV show, was based on.
That was when she was 15.
Yeah, 15.
She also dated Mick Jagger.
Here, I'll do the full.
You want to read the?
Yeah, I'll do the whole list. It's funny how much overlap there is in these, by the way. I found that amusing when I was writing this story.
There's a lot for sure.
Mick Jagger, Iggy Pop, David Bowie, Elvis Costello, Todd Rundgren, Jimmy Page, John Taylor from Duran Duran, and Steven Tyler, amongst others. There were others.
I find it very interesting, the girls that are like, yeah, I was a groupie. And then the ones that were like, I was not a groupie. okay. Like,
she had like a long-term on-again, off-again relationship with Todd Rundgren. And when she got pregnant by Steven Tyler, Tyler was like a drug addict. And that's Liv Tyler's mom. And in an effort to protect Liv from her father's drug addiction, she claimed initially that Todd Rundgren was the father. And I believe Rundgren was on the birth certificate. And her name initially was not Liv Tyler, it was Liv Rundgren. And she found out that Steven Tyler was her actual dad when she was 9.
yeah. What a weird thing.
So Baby Buell.
But they broke up right after she was born.
Yeah, they did. So Baby Buell did not marry any of those incredibly famous musicians. Instead, she married a musician who was never super famous, who I got into I don't even remember what it was about, but I got into an argument with him a couple of years ago.
Oh my God, of course you did.
You were there, Coyote Shivers. You remember that? I don't remember what it was about.
Something dumb.
I'm sure it's always something dumb. But Coyote Shivers ironically wrote a song that I really like, and he was in a movie that I love called Empire Records, which Liv Tyler was also in.
Great movie.
His song Sugar High is in that movie. In the movie itself, Renee Zellweger sings part of it, and it's great. And it's the only place you can hear it because it didn't get put on the soundtrack, which I'll tell that story in a minute. But Renee was great, and the song is great, and the movie is phenomenal. I quote that movie on a weekly basis.
He does.
I do. What's with today? I could do almost that whole movie line for line. I've seen that so many times.
I've only seen it like once or twice.
So the reason that Renee Zellweger's version of the song is not on the soundtrack is not for any good reason. The record company didn't want it on the soundtrack at all, with or without Renee Zellweger.
That's how weird.
The music supervisor thought that the version with Renee was too loud. I don't know why he couldn't just remaster the damn thing, but he didn't want to remaster it. And instead he picked, according to Coyote, he used, quote, the rough mix that was just meant for playback while we were filming, and the label put it as the last song on the record on the original pressing. And if you go to the article, the song is actually in the article. You can play it from the movie, not from the soundtrack, because I wanted to include Renee's version for people.
Love her.
As a mostly unrelated side note, the screenwriter for Empire Records, if you're not familiar with the movie, the whole movie takes place. There's a character who's based on Tom Collins named Rex Manning. And Rex Manning comes to visit the record store, and it's Rex Manning Day. Rex Manning Day was April 8th, which is the day that Kurt Cobain was found dead. And it's an homage to, they were filming it when he died. And the screenwriter says they have notes in the original script in the margins that they wanted to make the day April 8th as an homage to Kurt Cobain. And they never mentioned the date in the movie. And I think that's why. I think they originally had references to the day and they took it out as a kind of a memorial of sorts for Kurt. People still celebrate Rex Manning Day, which is a little weird because in the film, Rex Manning, in just the exact same manner that we're discussing here now, Rex Manning takes advantage of one of the Renee Zellweger's character in the store. They have sex in the back room. And Baby Buell and Laurie Maddox were both sort of part of the composite characters that Cameron Crowe used when he came up with the film Almost Famous. All the Band-Aids, all those girls are based on, he was a Cameron Crowe before he was a Hollywood actor and filmmaker. He was a teenage journalist, almost famous, is basically a true story about his life.
So great. So great.
All of it, including him losing his virginity in a threesome with these groupies.
The teenage journalist with the, I don't know how, I am curious how true it is to his home life because I love his mom in that movie so much.
Played by Frances McDermott. Yeah, she's great. So Buell was a partial inspiration for those characters, and in her honor, he named the lead singer of I'm blanking on the name of the band in that documentary, in that film. What the hell were they called? You want to look it up real quick?
I haven't watched that movie in probably a decade, but I can like hear it almost. What the fuck is the band?
Something stupid.
Oh, Stillwater.
Stillwater, yes. And that's I don't remember who the band is, but they're a reference to a band as well.
They're
an actual touring band.
Doorsy to me.
It wasn't the Doors.
I don't think it was, but I always felt that they were very.
But so the lead singer, who was played by Jason Lee, was named after Bebe Buell. Which brings us to Pamela DeBarnes.
Oh, wow.
She's unusual in the sense that she wrote some memoirs
Yeah.
about her time in the groupie scene. And a lot of people thought that Cameron Crowe based those characters on her memoirs, but he did not. He based them on his own experiences meeting the actual Flying Garter Girls when he was touring as a rock journalist. Pamela DeBarnes has a little bit of a different story from the other girls because she had a friend in high school who was a cousin of Captain Beefheart. He introduced her to Captain Beefheart, who introduced her to Frank Zappa, and she was invited into a Frank Zappa produced music group called the GTOs. And Captain Beefheart also introduced her to some of the Rolling Stones, Charlie Watts and Bill Wyman. And then she was like hanging out with the Byrds. And she was romantically linked with, and you're going to recognize some of these names because they came up before, Mick Jagger, Jimmy Page, Keith Moon, Graham Parsons, and Don Johnson, who is a musician, but who's better remembered for his role in Miami Vice, an 80s cop drama. Super realistic. They like drove around in Ferraris and solved crimes, as you do.
She was featured on the cover of Playboy, or in an issue of Playboy as well, which I thought was interesting because of the whole conversation we were having about agency. And like, I just think that it's so important when talking about these women and the groups that they created or that they put together for themselves and their close friends who loved music. And like they took care of each other as well. Like they wouldn't go places without each other to make sure that they could like, you know, and I just think it's important to not take the agency away from young women and the decisions that they make and the things they want to do and the like work that they choose to take.
You know, what's funny is some of them have changed their conceptions of their time then. I think it was DeBarnes. I might be wrong because I didn't include this in the article. I'm just going off memory. It might have been the woman that we're going to discuss next, but I think it was Barnes, who said that after the Me Too movement, she had to reframe her experiences in the rock scene of the 60s and 70s, and that now she thinks she was exploited when she threw herself at men who were emotionally frozen in their early teens.
I really feel like this might be taken the wrong way, but to be honest, I don't care. I lose respect for people that do that. You're recontextualizing the past based on like the people you've surrounded
social pressure.
Social pressure. The people you've surrounded yourself with are like, that sounds wrong. What a creep. I'm like, no, you wanted to do that. You wanted to be there. You wanted to date that guy. You decided to do that. And I really hate the recontextualizing because it's not fair.
Yeah, you know, I actually when I was a teenager, I had a relationship with an older woman. And I don't feel like I was exploited. I definitely knew what I was doing. It wasn't an awesome relationship, but I don't feel like I was taken advantage of in any way. In fact, not only do I not feel like I was taken advantage of, but it was a good learning experience. I wouldn't do the same thing. I don't know how she'd put up with a teenager, but
you're not normal.
That's true. Even as a teenager, I wasn't normal. I was a really weird kid. So, Almost Famous. There was Penny Lane is based on an actual person.
Wait.
What?
I wanted to add something about Pamela DeBarnes. So she
you need a coffee machine up here.
Go grab some coffee.
I'd have to make a new cup.
Hunter. not a good idea. So I wanted to add that she said she once kissed a murderer from the Manson family.
Oh yeah, I forgot to put that in there.
I thought was interesting.
It was before he was
right.
The Manson family.
So at the time, not a murderer.
I don't know that he was ever a murderer. He just belonged to the group.
I'm just going based off what she said. So, though I will say that whole thing like people say that about Charlie. He's a serial killer. Like he didn't actually kill anyone.
Yes, he did.
That we know of.
When you order a killing, you kill somebody.
So I agree with you, but I'm just talking about the weird wording. This is like a very specific thing to the Manson family. There was a lot of conversation about, well, he didn't actually. Well, he's not really. And that's not just with Charles Manson. That's other people too. By the way, well, never mind. I could talk about Charlie's music for a good minute, but let's not.
So Penny Lane was in the film. She was played by Kate Hudson, who read Barnes' memoirs as inspiration for the character. Penny Lane was the original Flying Garter Girl, the original Band-Aid. She was the first one, the one who set the whole thing up. In the early 70s, she was born in 1954, and in the early 70s, she started going to concerts to pursue sexual relationships with musicians. And she said, I'm going to read a quote from her. That's Kate Hudson in the movie.
Yeah.
She said, I knew that men had different tastes in women, and I couldn't be everything to everyone. So to appeal to broad tastes, I went on a scouting mission to meet a cross-section of different kinds of girls. It worked. One of us would get picked up by the band to go backstage, and where one of us went, we all went. We wouldn't get on a plane with a band unless they took all 5 of us. We looked after each other. We were the ultimate in entertainment for entertainers. If you wanted fame, fortune, or marriage, you couldn't be a Flying Garter Girl. You had to love music. And that line, ultimate in entertainment for entertainers, she had matchbooks printed up that said Flying Garter Girls on them and had that as their slogan, the ultimate entertainment for entertainers. I tried to find a picture of one of those matchbooks. I could not. I don't know if any exist. If somebody out there ever sees this and wants to send us a picture of it, I would love to post it in our magazine.
I haven't given. Ignore that. I haven't given my obsessive research skills a go at that.
I gave my obsessive research skills a go at it. Couldn't find anything. I found a lot of matchbooks, but none of them were for the Flying Garter Girls. So they all gave themselves names just like Penny did, except a lot of them were weirdly sexual. So Marvelous Meg, Sexy Sandy, Miss Julia, and Caroline Can-Can. That's my favorite of them. It's Caroline Can-Can. It makes me think of the song, just blanking today. Blanking all over the place.
We've been up for a while.
We have been up since, I was up at 5 this morning. I woke you up around 6:30.
I feel kind of slow.
10 p.m. here now. Where was I? Oh yeah, so Cameron Crowe asked Penny Lane Trumbull, who he knew, if he could use her likeness for the film, and she said yes. And again, if you want to watch Almost Famous, you've probably seen it. Most people have. But it's free on YouTube, and there's a link to it in the article. It has her favorite actor in it, Philip Seymour Hoffman, playing the amazing character of Lester Bangs.
I love him. Not my favorite actor,
You've
but I love
described
him.
him that way to me before.
He's one of my favorite actors. Sorry, I was just like, my favorite actor.
Kate Hudson's in it, Frances McDermott's in it, Jason Lee is in it. It's got a bunch of amazing performers in it. And the film is wonderful, which is a great, great film. And in the film, the character of Cameron Crowe's character loses his virginity to these groupies. And Crowe told the Daily Telegraph that it was, quote, painfully accurate, that scene. Happened to him in real life. He said it was really like that. He would call the scene painfully accurate, and he describes that the girl he wanted was the one who wasn't there. She left the room. And if you watch the film, Penny Lane walks out as the character in the film. He's named William, and the character William is beset upon by these 3 groupies who announce that they are going to deflower him, and they do. He said that he has always loved Penny Lane. He said that she had an aura about her and she was special. And he said there were girls then who really were not just groupies, they were muses. And Penny Lane looked after the others. She was something of a teenage mother hen, is how he described her.
I don't know why that makes me laugh.
So now, as the last of these stories with non-children, Marilyn Manson and Twiggy Ramirez. Twiggy's ex-girlfriend, Jessica Adams from the band Jack Off Jill, made a Facebook post in 2017 accusing Twiggy of rape, physical, and emotional abuse all throughout their 5-year relationship from 1992 to 1997. And Marilyn Manson fired Twiggy after that, which I thought was kind of ironic because just 4 years later, Marilyn Manson was accused of the exact same thing. Did not fire himself. Go figure.
Another thing, I mentioned The Long Hard Road Out of Hell earlier, which I read like 3 times.
Sorry, I have a maraca here.
The stories that Manson himself, this is something that's interesting to me because this was over a decade before these allegations about Manson and Twiggy Ramirez came out. He is so explicit. Like these stories, he talks about like groupies and fans wanting to come back stage and like tying people to chairs and like switching t-shirts with girls and making them tell them like their darkest secrets, and like having a girl like taking her to the back where the showers are and making her like strip, and all she's wearing is cowboy boots, and like there are multiple people like pissing on her when she's in the shower. And like, they're not making them do this. However, I will say, what?
Supposedly, he also made Evan and Rachel Wood dress up like Hitler, including a little Hitler mustache.
I have a huge problem with Evan and Rachel Wood.
So does Marilyn Manson.
Who it's unfortunate because I was such a big fan of her as well. Manson, I'm still a huge fan of. I love him. But the thing is that's interesting to me about this is that he's so explicit. He himself talks about this, and that's not a common feature in these stories. Other people who are accused of stuff like that don't tell stories like this, which makes me think that Manson wasn't.
Well,
he was like, I wasn't forcing anyone to do anything.
Here's what's interesting to me about the story is that after this came out, it wasn't just Evan and Rachel Wood. Evan and Rachel Wood came out and said this, and then so did a bunch of other girls. And Ashley Morgan Smithline recanted her story. And she said, quote, I succumbed to pressure from Evan and Rachel Wood and her associates to make accusations of rape and assault against Manson that were not true. She said that in a court declaration. She filed that in court. So, perjury, of course, if you tell the truth, you are not subject to perjury. But, at risk of perjury, she submitted a filing to the court saying that Evan and Rachel Wood essentially bullied her into making false accusations against Marilyn Manson.
There she is. I just thought that was another thing about Evan and Rachel Wood. Her parents were in theater. She grew up backstage on, like, if I recall correctly, like Broadway shows. She's been in movies her whole life. And the way that she describes getting involved with Manson was as if she was completely like some country girl who knew nothing about the world. And I'm like, shut the...
Evan Rachel Wood reminds me of Amber Heard.
Evan Rachel Wood so reminds me of Amber Heard. They have a very strangely similar thing going on. And another thing is I found old interviews. Rachel Wood talked about how she wasn't allowed to leave the house or do things. But I went back and I found straight up, she's out like taking cabs on the street alone and out at nylon photo. Like there was this one nylon photo shoot where she talks about how in love she is with Marilyn Manson, and she's in one country and he's in another, and they're doing their own thing. And like, she's in all these movies, like, I don't remember what the movie was. And I'm not trying to sensationalize it or like take away from whatever pain she's experiencing, but she's absolutely not believable. And people like that really piss me off because there are victims out there who I think are very credible. And Evan Rachel Wood to me does not come across that way. And I'm not saying that just because I'm a Manson fan, because I was a big fan of hers as well.
To me, as soon as somebody comes out and says, I was put up to this by this woman and I'm sorry and it wasn't true, it undermines the whole claim. I can't believe any of the stories because apparently she conned somebody into making false accusations.
She got like a tattoo for Manson. It was his like heart and lightning bolt thing. And which reminded me a lot of Susan from my book, who like, it's a quick parallel, but told police she was forced to get tattoos, but then I interviewed her and she told me she designed some of her tattoos and wanted to be a tattoo artist and tattooed other women who were involved with them. So convoluted. Evan Rachel Wood was in a music video of his and also was in Phantasmagoria, I think, as well. I believe so, yeah. The like Through the Looking Glass, or no, it was like The Real Visions of Lewis Carroll or something like that.
It was never released, was it?
It was. I saw it a couple times. Very hard to find, but I found it, and I watched that a couple times. It was all right.
So now.
Oh, wait, one more thing. I'm sorry. There was an interview I found of her while she was dating him, and someone said, "What's it like dating him?" And she says, "I wouldn't be with the man if he wasn't a complete gentleman." And she's in like this nice coat, and she's alone, totally independent, getting in a cab on the street. So like, you know what I mean? Very like a paparazzi moment type of thing. And like, I'm such a big.
So she was alone. Maybe she was
like,
being held against her will.
Right. And again, there are real victims out there, but I can't with these fucking stories. Like,
we're about to talk about some real victims.
Okay, so at the beginning of this, we discussed the juxtaposition and why we wanted to discuss groupies and various stories about them, and willing participants and people who like genuinely, like Sable, for example. Sable Star, who was like, my personality was destroyed, but I'm not.
In a nod to libertarians who are somewhat internet famous for saying that's hebephilia, not pedophilia. I created 2 sections for this article: hebephibo and pedo, and we're now in the pedo section, starting with Gary Glitter, who, when we did the Albini live stream, someone requested that we cover Gary Glitter, and now we are. And I said that we had this, an incomplete list is what this article was originally titled. And yeah. So Gary Glitter was arrested in 1997 when child pornography was found on a laptop that he took in for repair. A lot of pedophiles seem to be caught this way. It's a very odd. You would think so. I don't remember who it was, but somebody got in trouble recently for he was on a live stream and he basically said, if you're doing something like this, you shouldn't bring your laptop in for repair. I don't know why he got in trouble for saying that, because it just seems obvious to me.
Yeah.
If you're doing something illegal with your laptop, you should probably not hand it to a random stranger who's going to root around in your hard drive.
Yeah, it doesn't have to even have anything to do with child porn.
No, it just seems like
anything illegal.
I have this theory. We've talked about this before in relation to serial killers. I have a theory that people who engage in this kind of pathological predation, there's part of their brain that wants to get caught. And that's why they do things like bury bodies on their own property in shallow graves where police can easily find them. It's why they do things like bring their laptop that has child sexual abuse images to refix it. And they're, it's broken, let me fix this.
I actually think it's because they think I talk a little bit about this in one of my videos on the 7 myths about serial killers that comes from the FBI behavioral analysis unit and the analysis of violent crime and like criminal behavior. But it's because they think they can't get caught. And so they start behaving in these ways because, like, who would actually want to get caught? They genuinely are convinced that they can't. And
I don't believe that.
That's totally fair. And ultimately, I think that it's more that they think they can't, and they just start getting cocky and making a ton of mistakes and stuff, or they're psychotic and they're literally burying people on their yard, and like it's totally disconnected from reality. They're not even thinking I might get caught. They're not here. But again, I don't know. I'm not like, do you know what I mean?
I think
we could both be right,
brain.
and people are different.
Humans are wired to be social animals. We're all social animals, very similar to dogs, actually. Socially, we're very similar to dogs. And I don't know, we're not set up socially to prey on each other. If you're preying on other human beings, the other human beings are going to find out, and they're going to, going back to prehistory, they're going to stone you to death or sacrifice you to a volcano god or something. They're not going to just allow you to continue to prey on them. And so I think that the pathological behavior, something in the wiring of their brain short circuits them to get them caught, because part of them knows they're not supposed to be doing that. And it creates self-undermining behavior.
Yeah. I really do think it depends on the person. I think some people...
I could be wrong, for sure.
I think there are some people that are so, like...
I mean, if they're really psychotic, then sure, they have no... But even
I
then,
mean, there are stories of killers who have literally written letters to the police saying, please help, like, or please catch me. I will not stop. I can't stop. And I think that those people are like, they don't want to outright get caught. I think they also want credit for their crimes, but I think that they're also just exhausted from their compulsions because they're mentally ill and disturbed. And I think it's exhausting. And I think some people feel that they want the structure of being incarcerated where they can live out their life being taken care of by the state, basically.
Gary Glitter.
And like...
Gary Glitter is like a master class in what we're talking about. So he gets into his 4,000 images of children on his laptop. He gets arrested. He gets charged with child pornography. He's sentenced to 4 months in prison. I don't understand the way that we sentence people for crimes. I truly don't understand the way we sentence people for crimes. There are people who like sold cocaine and they get 40 years in prison. This guy got images of children being victimized on his computer and he gets 4 months. Unreal.
People do not change. I don't care if they're like, well, there's rehabilitation. There is no rehabilitation for pedophiles. None. It's not going to happen. They're going to do it again. That pisses me off. I just had to say that. Like, they shouldn't continuously be released as if they're going to all of a sudden behave. It's like sexual attraction isn't something you can change. So on the one hand, I'm like, oh, that must suck. Can't relate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, people.
But on the other hand, like there are people who have come out and said that they have that attraction and they've never acted on it because they understand that it's wrong. And then there are monsters who literally, they don't possess care-based moral reasoning and they don't give a shit.
People get really mad if you describe pedophilia as a sexual orientation, but it literally is. They are oriented towards children sexually. That's why they're preying on children.
Yeah, like
that doesn't mean that you have to accept it. I think this is like a weird. I don't want to liken pedophilia to homosexuality in any way, but I think that it's a weird holdover from the push to accept homosexuality. Like, oh, it's a sexual orientation. That doesn't mean you have to accept it. You know, in the case of homosexuality, nobody's being hurt. It's two consenting adults. Who cares? In the case of a 40-year-old man and a 6-year-old, that's gross, and they should spend the rest of their life in prison, or they should just be executed because keeping them in prison is a waste of everyone's oxygen.
Yeah, I honestly feel that people like that are, this is a unpopular opinion, but I couldn't give a shit.
With cursing.
Sorry. This is an unpopular opinion, but that does not concern me because I truly, truly believe that it's like a defective person or like a dog with rabies that has to be put down. This person doesn't need to be in society, and I don't care. They don't need to be here.
I agree.
Like, and
So Glitter.
Sorry, I could go on for a minute there.
Glitter decided to, after his 4-month stint in prison, Gary Glitter decided he was going to leave the UK because of his new public image as a child predator. So he went where all First, he went to Spain, and they didn't want him. So he went to Spain, and they immediately detained him. And then he went to Cambodia and Thailand and Bangkok, and then Vietnam. And in Vietnam, he got in trouble again. He was banned from a nightclub for allegedly groping a teenage waitress. And then witnesses reported that he had young girls coming into his house. So police raided his house, and they found he was living with a 15-year-old girl, and they found 6 other Vietnamese girls aged 11 to 23 who claimed that Glitter had some kind of sexual relationship with them. So he was brought up on charges there.
I cannot with this.
And he had obscene acts with girls aged 10 and 11. He faced up to 14 years in prison, and again with the sentencing, He was found guilty. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison for his rape of a 10 and 11-year-old girl. And then he was deported at the end of his sentence. He was fined 5 million Vietnamese dong, which is $315 at the time that this was written. And that went to victims' families for restitution. He was interviewed by the BBC in 2006 and denied being a pedophile. He claimed that he had never knowingly had sex with anyone under the age of 18. Since he had sex with a 10 and 11-year-old girl, I find that extremely hard to believe. And when I say extremely hard to believe, what I mean is I don't believe him.
Absolutely not.
Stupid. I never knowingly had sex. It was just a 10-year-old.
Well, I didn't directly ask her what her age was. Like, so, I'm pretty sure it's obvious.
After he was deported from Vietnam, he was 19 countries announced that he was not welcome there, including Cuba, Cambodia, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Thailand, and the Philippines. They all said that they would refuse entry if Glitter tried to come in. So he went back to the UK, and at Heathrow, he was met by police, and he's now on the sex offenders registry in the UK. I don't know if he's alive or not. I didn't bother to include that in this because I actually don't care if he's alive or not. Hopefully he's not.
Yeah, I was going to say, hopefully he's not. I'm going to look it up.
Does anybody know if Gary Glitter died? Is Gary Glitter still alive? I don't know.
Yep. Oh my God.
Suspicious facial hair. Never trust anybody with facial hair like that.
Oh, it's worse. Oh, it's so much worse. What the hell?
What the hell? Next up, we have another punk rocker who, I don't know this for a fact, but I bet Steve Albini was a fan. Gigi Allin. Very famous shock. Well, I don't know, very famous. In the punk scene, Gigi Allin is very, very famous. He had a relationship with a teenage girl from Texas named Tracy Denault in the 1980s. He got her pregnant, and she had a kid, Gary Glitter's kid, a girl named Nico. I don't know this for a fact, but I wonder if she's named after Nico from the Velvet Underground. They were never married, and that's the end of that.
Don't bring Lou Reed into this.
It's a very short story, but that's the end of that story.
Hold on.
I want to move on.
You said something. I think it might have been a slip up, but you said the daughter of Gary Glitters.
Is that what I said?
Yeah.
I meant Gigi Allin.
Okay, I was confused.
Gigi Allin had a daughter named Nico, not Gary Glitter, as far as I know.
Unless I heard that, I don't know. Whatever. I just wanted to clarify.
So now we're going to touch on, this is a weird one, and I wasn't sure where to include this. I almost included it in the previous section because this is a bizarre one.
This one's
Spencer Elden, who is the little boy on the cover of Nirvana's Nevermind, naked floating in a pool.
We all know this, right?
He was 4 months old. A guy named Kirk Weddle photographed the concept and submitted the photo for the album. When he was 31, Elden filed suit against Dave Grohl and Chris Novoselic and Kurt Cobain's estate and Kirk Weddle, alleging that he was child sexual exploitation. He claimed that his guardians never consented to the image being used. He asked for $150,000 in damages, along with attorney fees. He accused Nirvana of failing to protect him from sexual exploitation and claimed that having his naked body on a famous album cover as a baby caused him to suffer lifelong damages. Now, one thing I'd like to point out is that if he hadn't told anyone, nobody ever would have known.
No one would have
because
known, right?
He was a baby, and so he was not recognizable, when he went off to college. Hey, weren't you that baby?
Where have I seen you before?
You look really familiar. I think I've seen you on an album cover naked.
I have to point out.
The lawsuit was dismissed, by the way.
First, I mean, no offense, Spencer, but as it should be.
The judge said he waited too long to file a claim. She filed it when he was a baby.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that expired when you were 7 years old. I wanted to point something out. First of all, as you said, no one would have known. Secondly, he says all that, but he got a huge chest tattoo that says "Never mind." If I recall, he got some other Nirvana tattoos as well, and I'm like, you made this your whole personality.
I hate the album so much. Look what they did to me.
I'm like, you made this like your whole thing and then just changed your mind. He even redid, before this whole thing, he redid the photo shoot.
He did.
So that's him as an adult redoing it.
Not naked, though.
Yeah. God. And then, this isn't a great version, but here's him with the Nevermind tattoo.
Oh, well, whatever.
I'm like, come on, bro.
Nevermind.
Honestly, that whole thing stinks of like, shit, I need money. I'm in my 30s now.
We're trying to not curse as much. Pete Townshend is who we're going to talk about next. This is another weird one. Pete Townshend from The Who.
I don't know.
This is a very strange story.
I don't know how I feel about this one.
Pete Townshend, in the UK, they have a weird legal system, and so he wasn't arrested, and he wasn't charged. Well, he actually, I think he might have been arrested, but he wasn't charged with anything. He was cautioned, which is kind of like being put on probation. And he used his credit card to access a child pornography website. He claimed he was researching a book that he was writing, and that he submitted his credit card to the website to prove that banks in the United Kingdom were complicit in child sexual exploitation. He also never put out the book. He claimed so the book was supposed to be titled "A Different Bomb," which is a weird title for a book about child sexual exploitation. He said that, here's a quote, "This is the book I spoke about that was in preparation when I was arrested. It's about the impact and danger of child porn on the internet, essays about and interviews with casualties of abuse or survivors like myself. I have shelved the book. I can't venture publicly into this area again." Does that mean he can venture privately into this area again? Weird. The whole thing's weird.
The whole thing's very, very weird. And also, I wanted to say that this was stated by the police, the Metropolitan Police, but they said this in 2002, 2003, that it was established that Mr. Townshend was not in possession of any downloaded child abuse images.
Yeah, they didn't find anything on his computer.
So I thought that was interesting because
it lends a little bit of credence to his story.
It does, and also he has this like just such this like sad, pained look on his face, and he said he wanted to write the book
as a survivor.
Yeah, because he experienced it himself and wanted to like, and it made me think of the initial story we heard about William Stead, who did something very similar but without the internet. So like, and you know, times were different.
The police in the UK said something else that I thought was weird about this. Was they said that they could not prove that the website involved any children, which is strange to me because it's described as a child pornography website.
Very strange.
And I don't understand how a child pornography website could somehow not involve children.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
That was strange. But I also just, you know, this is a horrifying topic, but I wanted to share one of my favorite memes as somebody who does lots of research about very dark things. This is when someone checks your internet history. It was for a book I was writing. You got to believe me. It was for a book.
He's been mocked incessantly on the internet for all of this.
He has, and it's if he was telling the truth, it's very unfortunate. And there's just this.
I got to be honest about it. I have a Pete Townshend also. I don't remember the title, but he has an autobiography. I've read Pete Townshend's autobiography. Pete Townshend in his autobiography, if you've read it, maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, but he comes off like a narcissistic, just a crazy person. He claims to have invented everything from heavy metal to distortion. It was a weird book. It was the artist biography that I enjoyed reading the least. It enraged me. Who I Am by Pete Townshend.
The most narcissistic title.
Who I Am.
I want to say, it's not to say that he wasn't a victim of a pedophile growing up. I don't know. I haven't read his book.
On the extreme,
I do think it's weird that he decided not to put the book out, because if that shit had happened, because if that had happened to me, like while researching something as a victim, it would make me 10 times more likely to want to put the book out, to tell the story. On the
extreme off chance that Pete Townshend ever watches this, I just want him to know that he did not invent distortion.
My God.
He should talk with the they didn't necessarily invent distortion either, but they're often credited with inventing guitar distortion. The Davies brothers from the band The Kinks. I believe the track, I don't have this in front of me, I'm just off my memory, but I think it was You Really Got Me, the great lead guitar from that. There's a story that I don't think is true. I've been playing guitar for almost 30 years, and supposedly there was a torn speaker, and that's what created the distorted sound, except distortion isn't caused by that. It's caused by overloading the transistors in an amplifier by clipping the signal with either a soft clip or a hard clip of the wave.
Heard torn speaker, and I'm just hearing this awful, like, deafening popping sound.
It creates sort of a farting noise. Actually.
Yeah, it has. Yeah,
like blowing
yeah.
on your
Like,
lips.
I always just thought of it as like a popping sound, but like that's.
It's a diaphragm. They make them out of different materials now, but in the 1950s, speakers all had paper cones. And so if you just imagine a piece of paper that you rip and then put in front of a fan.
I'm just describing my own.
Yeah. So next up we have Stephen Coronel. Stephen Coronel wrote a bunch of songs, or he co-wrote a bunch of songs with the band Kiss. And he actually introduced Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons as well. They were all three of them were in a band together with a very ironic name, considering this story, called Wicked Lester. They were originally called Rainbow, and there was another band called Rainbow, and they had to change the name. And for reasons that escape me, they thought Wicked Lester was the name that they should go with. Coronel in 2014 was charged with possession of child pornography. Police determined his IP address was streaming child sexual abuse material on the internet depicting a female child between 6 and 11 years of age. He got 10 years in prison with 75 days served and the possibility of only serving 6 years with 3 years probation, which is what happened. He was released from prison in 2019, transferred to South Carolina while he awaited approval to move to Florida. He wrote a song, unfortunately. I really like the song. When I first heard it, I heard it as a Melvin's cover.
Yes.
And I thought it was meant to be ironic because of the lyrics. But given that the person who authored the song was actually arrested, he looks like a child predator.
He does, and actually I can't say that. I was going to compare him to another criminal,
Yeah,
but I don't.
But so the lyrics were Going Blind. She did the other ones. I'll do this one. Little lady, can't you see? You're so young and so much different from I. I'm 93, you're 16. Can't you see I'm going blind? Because I think I'm going blind, and I know how it's to be. That song is in this article as well. If you want to listen to it, it's in there.
I want to sing
I included the Kiss version, but if you want, you should look up the Melvin's version, which is much better.
The Melvin's version is 10 times better. I don't even know. I've heard the Kiss version a couple times and was like,
yeah, I don't like Kiss.
I was not big.
They're kind of like ICP before rap.
They are. Oh my God.
They dress up as like Astro clowns. Yeah. Not a fan.
I like Marilyn Manson's like obsession with Kiss lunchboxes. Anyways.
I will say that Kiss. Here we go. Here's my capitalism rant for this video.
Oh.
One thing that I do like about Kiss is that Gene Simmons. I hate Kiss. I've never liked their music. I don't like reality TV. I loved Gene Simmons' Family Jewels. Gene Simmons' Family Jewels is the best reality TV show that has ever been made.
It's very funny.
Amazing. But Gene Simmons is like he is the opposite of Steve Albini. If there is a way to make money off of the band Kiss, Gene Simmons has done it. They have sold everything from coffins. You can buy a Kiss coffin if you want one. I think they sold that at like Costco or something too. It's crazy. Any kind of merchandising that Gene Simmons could do for Kiss, he did.
Yeah, that was one of the things. You know what? That's another tangent for a different time. Next
up, we have Jerry Yester, who probably few people are ever going to. Few people are going to know. He's not super famous, but he is famous. He was arrested for possession of child pornography, released on $35,000 bond, which seems very low, in October of 2017. He was in the Love and Spoonful. He was not the original guitarist from Love and Spoonful. They're best known for the song "You Believe in Magic." Do you believe in magic? Do you believe in magic? And I hope you do. In a young girl's heart. Yeah, he definitely believed in that. His bandmates said they were shocked. He pled guilty. He was kicked out of the band. He got a 2-year sentence, and he had to register as a sex offender. Again, with a short sentence.
Got off way too late.
2 years. What's the deal?
The first time, anything that has to do with.
You sell somebody an 8-ball, you go to jail for 30 years. You
I really
abuse a kid, you go for 2.
Leave the drug.
Make it make sense.
I really am like, leave the drug people alone.
Next up, we have Carl Logan from the band Manowar.
Don't understand.
He was arrested in Charlotte, North Carolina, 2010, for allegedly possessing child pornography. Charged with 6 counts, third-degree exploitation of a minor. Again, bail, $35,000. Manowar announced that he would not perform with them on their final tour, and he did not. He had videos that showed girls between the ages of 4 and 12.
That's some Sodos level.
Yeah, absolutely. He got 5.5 years in prison. in 2022. He's still in jails.
I just don't understand this. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Just execute him. He doesn't need to be alive anymore.
No, he doesn't need to be here.
If you sexually abuse
His
or
music's not
participate,
even good.
you don't have to do it yourself. If you participate in the sexual abuse of a 4-year-old, you should be killed.
I agree. 100%.
And I don't mean imprisoned by other prisoners. I mean, either the state should either shoot you or hang you. I'm not a lethal injection fan. I don't like lethal injection.
Well, you can survive it, and it's incredibly expensive.
It's expensive. It's also a slow way to die. A lot of people think you like drift off in sleep, but there's actually some evidence that what happens is you suffocate to death, and the only reason that you seem like you're asleep is because they give you a paralyzing agent first.
Yeah.
Although I've heard that they're starting to use fentanyl for the lethal injections. But
I just don't like.
just bullets. Bullets are a lot cheaper.
Like,
you can get a bullet for like less than $1.
I just don't get it.
You could probably get volunteers too. I'd volunteer to shoot.
I would.
Guy that molested a 4-year-old.
I was way too excited to do that, but
I didn't even bring my own gun.
just don't hurt children.
I'll donate the bullet. I'll save the taxpayers the 50 cents it costs for a round.
BYOB.
Austin Henry Jones is the next
Oh
creepy
my
fella.
God.
I don't know this guy. He was a YouTuber from 2007 to 2017. He made music on YouTube. He was arrested for the production of child pornography. He got in trouble first in 2015. He wasn't arrested, but there was this kind of social consequences because he was teaching an underage girl to twerk.
Sick.
He had 540,000 subscribers on YouTube. He had over 20 million views when he was arrested. In 2019, his social media accounts were permanently terminated. They were deleted, so you can't go watch his film anymore.
Bummer.
I know, so sad. He got 10 years. Again, I don't.
What is this? I
don't
just don't get it.
Next, we have Jesse Lacey from the band Brand New, who was accused of sexual misconduct in 2017. Alleged events occurred 15 years earlier when the girls were underage. Lacey was in his early 20s. He apologized publicly on Brand New's Facebook, and he admitted he had a sex addiction, claimed he sought treatment before the allegations were made public. I don't think he ever got in trouble, and there's no, in the article, I don't mention any jail time. I don't think he got in trouble at all.
Well, he apologized on Facebook.
As long as you apologize on Facebook, you don't need to serve the 2 years in prison you would have gotten. Next, we have Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes was accused of statutory rape and soliciting nude photos via AIM, AOL Instant Messenger, in 2017. I was most surprised that people were still using AOL Instant Messenger in 2017.
My computer died. Sorry to
Isn't
interrupt
that plugged in?
Yeah, it is. That's why I'm confused.
Hit the power button.
I already tried all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make sure it's plugged in. Oh, when that thing fell, did it? No. When that thing fell, did it shut? Is it plugged in directly?
It's all plugged in. I already checked it when I stood up earlier.
Okay.
That's why I think the outlet's messed up, but I don't want to.
Oh, go ahead. Go. Try. I will continue talking about Mike Fuentes and his AOL Instant Messenger use in 2017. He was in Pierce the Veil, by the way. That's his band, Pierce the Veil. Yeah, I'm not a big fan. He was part of a rock music started to sound like really overproduced, and Pierce the Veil is a band that I associate with that overproduced sound. I think you're right that outlet's messed up because I see your laptop is now powering back up.
It was the outlet.
So they apparently met on MySpace, and then he met her at a Pierce the Veil concert. He was 24, she was 16. They had sex after the Pomona stop, the band's Warped Tour in 2008. They exchanged cell phone numbers and kept in contact. And when she turned 15, he requested nude photos. And he said he was going to take a break from Pierce the Band, and the vocalist, guitarist, and his brother, Vic Fuentes, said that he would not be part of the band anymore. He has not been part of the band since, as far as I know. I'm not a fan, so I know is what I researched for this article, which I've been working on for a year and a half. So a lot of these are not recent in my memory.
I really don't know a lot about their music other than the fact that it is not my thing.
They had a song on one of the Pop Goes Punk albums. I don't remember what they covered. The first one was a good album. They weren't on that one. They were on like Pop Goes Punk number 12 or something. Oh
yeah,
it wasn't really 12.
It just went downhill.
There is one, Reliant, this is a sort of divergent, but Reliant K did a cover of a pop song that I really like. I associate with my childhood. I can't remember the title of the song. The melody's going through my head right now. 6 o'clock already. I was just in the middle of a dream. Kissing Valentino by a crystal blue Italian stream.
I couldn't tell you. I'd have to hear it.
These are the days when you wish you better. Manic Monday by the Bangles.
Oh my God. Okay. Duh.
Next up, we have Dahvie Vanity, who was in Blood on the Dance Floor.
I was gonna.
He looks like he belongs in a Peter Pan movie.
I was gonna say he's doing magic tricks at the Luxor.
He's got a little Peter Pan thing going on in this image. At least 21 women have made sexual assault, child molestation, or rape allegations against Vanity. His former bandmate, Garrett Ecstasy, who left the band in 2009, and Jay Von Monroe, who left in 2016, describe him as a sexual predator. Jeffree Star and New Year's Day members Ash Costello and Nikki Misery said they have observed Vanity engaged in questionable or illegal sexual behavior during the band's work tours and also during the All the Rage 2012 tour in support of Blood on the Dance Floor's third studio album of the same name. Many of his accusers were underage at the time of the attacks. He's responded to the accusations with denial, threats, or evasion.
I have to be so careful about the things that I say.
I really want to say something that I'm vulgar that I'm not going to say to Dahvie Vanity in the event that he ever watches this.
I've had a lot of those thoughts go through my head. I'm like, don't get sued.
Finally, we close with Burger Records, which was a record label and record store out west. They were a label as well. They faced allegations of normalizing a culture of sexual assault, both at shows and within their roster of artists. Multiple artists on the label have been accused, including the Growlers, the Buttertones, Black Lips, Part-Time, Mystic Braves, Cosmonauts, and others, including a band called Swimmers, which features Joey Armstrong, who is Billy Joe Armstrong's son.
This is one of those sketchy cover-up stories.
I find this interesting because it basically just went away.
Yeah.
Almost as if the massive publicity machine that surrounds Green Day I don't have any evidence to substantiate that, so I'm not actually accusing Green Day of any impropriety in relationship to the son of their lead singer and guitarist.
It is
But it's curious.
It is.
Very curious.
Quite. Especially, like, we just read a whole thing about people's careers and lives being destroyed by their sick choices.
He was
and
accused.
It's interesting to see someone who...
He was accused of assault by another musician, Lydia Knight, of a band called The Regrets. I'll let you make that obvious joke yourself. Another accusation came from another female musician, Clementine Creevy of the band Cherry Glazer. And they had also put out music on Burgers. So not only was she assaulted, but she was assaulted by other members of her label and record company. They shut down after the allegations surfaced in July of 2020. So that was just 4 years ago. And again, that stuff, after they shut down, it just kind of all dissipated. I find it all curious given the involvement of a very famous musician's son, possibly the most famous rock band currently performing, Green Day.
Yeah, so I mean, they're just huge.
Yeah.
Massive. They had a musical on Broadway.
Yeah, we just heard that song in the car yesterday. American Idiot.
Yeah, I mean, that's not all the time, but it really, like, all
It
the
is
time. It's one of those songs where, like, if you turn the radio on, there is a good chance you will hear it if you're in the car for at least, like, half an hour.
All right, I'm going to do my obnoxious radio voice. All right, let's go to the phones. We're going to look at the way we have to do this, because I have to edit these together into an edited version of this that we can put out, to not only YouTube, but Audible and Amazon and Spotify and murderpm.com. We try not to interrupt during the broadcast. So now we're going to go back to the comments, to the phones, and we're going to see what you guys have to say. I did see a lot of comments as they came in. Some of them I answered, some of them she answered. Because it's just a picture, you see it, and you're like, oh, I gotta.
I have to say, Cement Shoes, one thing I saw, you wrote PDF files are unworthy of life, and that really cracked me up, but I couldn't say anything.
I hate Adobe as a company. Adobe and Macintosh are my two least favorite tech companies, with Apple being a close third.
All right, I'm scrolling.
They might actually all be tied for number one. Come to think of it.
I don't know how far up.
Just go all the way.
All the way?
Yeah, sort of beginning. All right, what do we got? Yes, you've already heard all of this, but it is about musicians who take advantage of either fans or children. Jerry Lewis is in the thumbnail.
Phil Spector is not. We are not discussing him, and he.
Not yet.
Not yet, but he is not. He doesn't have anything to do with this subject matter.
We will likely do Murder Talk Radio on Phil Spector at some point in the future, but not today.
No, that picture was of what's his name from Kiss.
I don't like Kid Rock either. I hated the whole rap rock thing. I don't like Korn. I don't like Limp Bizkit, although I do like their cover of Faith by, what's his name? Michael.
I'm not a Limp Bizkit fan, but I do love Korn.
Man, my brain, getting old is weird.
It's weird. It's like I can see people, I know it, and it's just not there. Like, I can't. It's fun.
Yeah.
What's next?
You know what's funny is I can't remember his name, but I can tell you he was in the band Wham. George Michael. There we go. George Michael's song, Faith. I do like the Limp Bizkit cover of Faith, but more for nostalgic reasons than it was just on a lot when I was in high school.
Korn was a lot better before they got all Christian. They were good, and then they all like.
Korn was never good. I will not shut up. You're entitled to your own taste, as I'm entitled to mine, and my taste is that Korn was never good.
Never.
He is a big dog, and he is always in the way. I always wanted an Akita, and now we just talk about how we're probably never going to have a giant dog again. Maybe if we have a huge house and I don't have to walk them, but living in an apartment, walking him 3 times a day keeps me in shape, I guess, but that's a lot. It is a lot. 3 hours a day almost I spend just walking the dog. Let's see. Yes, Elvis, Jimmy Page, David Bowie, brought all them up. Sorry, the audio is lagging. YouTube seems to be having audio struggles of late. We talked about that at the beginning. You went too far. Go back up slightly. Okay. See, there's the poke audio. I addressed that when it came up. YouTube was cool before Google. We talked about that. All of Earth's problems on YouTube. All of Earth's, I can blame not YouTube, Google. I believe that if Google let YouTube go, spun it off into an independent company, I think YouTube would repair itself. But as long as it's owned by Google, I think it's going to be like it is now. They'll ruin it the same way they've ruined everything else they've ever touched.
We are Prince fans too.
I didn't know that about Prince.
I remember hearing something about that, but I never.
A lot of people don't know this about.
I thought he would. Sorry.
I have two things about Prince. The first is a lot of people don't know this about Prince, but Prince is an amazing guitarist. An amazing guitarist.
People don't know that.
There's a lot of people who don't know that Prince is an amazing guitarist. Prince is an amazing guitarist. And the other thing that people don't know about Prince is that, what's his name? Michael Moore. No, it's not Michael Moore. Is it Michael Moore?
Yeah.
Are you sure it's Michael Moore?
Or no. What am I saying? It's not Michael Moore. I know who you're talking about. It's what's his name? Smith.
Yeah, the guy who made Dogma and who made Clerks.
Yeah, Clerks.
And Clerks 2, obviously, made Clerks and Clerks 2, and Chasing Amy and Mallrats, with also has Jason Lee in it.
Smith. What's his bloody name?
I don't know. I can't remember anything anymore.
Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith, yes, there we go. Kevin Smith has an amazing Prince story. It's hard to find, but basically Prince invited him out to his studio to film. So he saw Dogma, I guess. Prince saw Dogma, and he invited Kevin Smith out to his studio, and he wanted Kevin Smith to shoot some kind of documentary. Prince was super religious. And Kevin Smith, if you can find the story, it's hysterical. I don't want to tell the whole story. It's not even my story. But very funny. Very, very funny.
So weird.
Very weird as well, yes.
Prince is just a bizarre person. I want to go read more about that because I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. Good evening to you too, Cement Shoes. Let's see, what else we got?
Don't try.
Do not marry your cousin is great advice. I've never done it personally, but most of the stories that I've ever heard about people who married their cousins do not seem to work out very well.
I just don't get it. There are so many other people out there. Why your cousin? God. That's a bad joke. All right. Ted Nugent is super conservative.
Yes. But again, Stranglehold. If you're a guitarist, you know what I'm talking about. Stranglehold. Just can't. It's a great song. The guitar is just. The Donnas most likely did have groupies. They built their whole career on having groupies. 40 Boys and 40 Nights. They were a constructed band, like the Ramones. Some music producer put them together. Robert
Stone said, "Is Elvis on the list?"
Elvis.
I'm sure he'll, if he goes back and watches from the beginning.
Elvis was the very first story that we talked about with Elvis.
Dang, I meant to put him on the bloody thumbnail.
Kate Hudson married Matt Bellamy from Muse and Chris Robinson of the Black Crowes.
I did not know that.
I didn't know that either. I also didn't know Cameron Crowe is married to,
Yeah.
I think, Nancy Wilson from Heart. And she did the score for Almost Famous, which I didn't know before I wrote this story.
What? Wait, did you tell me that the other day?
Yeah, yesterday.
That was so crazy. She's amazing. I did not know that. I must have forgot.
I have a friend in a Heart cover band. You know this already, but I have a friend in a Heart cover band.
I've never heard anyone who can sing like her except for your friend. It's like the vocal doppelganger.
She also does sound at Mohegan Sun. She's a sound engineer at a casino in Connecticut called Mohegan Sun.
Amazing voice.
She does. She has an incredible voice.
Like, really.
Marilyn Manson used to beat up Twiggy. Marilyn, if you do a YouTube search for Marilyn Manson John 5 fight, Marilyn Manson and John 5 got into a fight on stage during a show.
John 5 does that weird little, like whatever the weird emotion is from like the 1930s boxing.
He decided not to, but I personally think that John 5 would have beat the shit out of Marilyn Manson.
I think, well, okay, so his physicality made me laugh, but it's that thing that you always tell me about people who've really been in fights don't want to get in fights. And John 5 had this kind of like, don't make me do it kind of thing, which is why it made me laugh because of the way he was doing that. And Manson like called him a pussy and whatever, and was baiting him, so clearly baiting him, you know? And
John
he
5,
didn't.
by the way, another amazing guitarist.
John 5 is so incredible that he actually, in this interview, he put his hands together, and he had played from such a young age that his left hand is actually his fingers are slightly longer just because of the reach of like playing from such a young age. I was just like,
you'd never know listening to Marilyn Manson's music because it's so simple, but John 5 is amazing. He's an amazing guitarist.
Black Widow of Porta is
he now plays for Rob Zombie, where he gets to use more of his talents.
Somebody's away.
And his Sounds of Impalement album is great too. Let's see what else we got. Evan Rachel Wood is full of it. She is. Just like Amber Heard.
Wolfie, who fled to Spain with her daughter, Urna. Who names their kid that? I'm sorry.
You know, PDF files, I think that's just meant to be a joke. Pedophiles.
I know. That's why I laughed about it.
I mean, didn't even occur to me until just now.
Hi, baby.
I was just like, I hate Adobe.
I know. I just thought it was like a continuation of the joke.
No, but I do hate Adobe. It was my hatred for Adobe that probably overrode recognizing the joke. Adobe makes my skin crawl. I don't know what that was about.
You know, We Are Vultures. Pedos absolutely make my skin crawl. I mean, for real. How could they not?
That's probably what that's about.
But I have been thinking of telling a story about being followed by one. That happened to me. I think I had to be between 10 and 12. And it was, I'm thinking of doing a video where I talk about that because that was a wild experience that taught me a lot. Oh, also, I had a middle school theater teacher who was a pedophile and got arrested. And the crazy thing about that was that some students thought he was creepy and made jokes about him being a pedophile, and then he turned out to be one.
I'm not surprised.
So that was weird.
I have a somewhat related story. I mentioned at the beginning of this, we didn't really talk about it, but I described myself as a weird kid. I was born in the early 80s, and There was no, I didn't get warned about strangers when I was a kid. That was not a thing. But when I was about 6 or 7 years old, I got off the school bus and nobody was home and I couldn't get in my house. And this woman pulled up in a car and she said, your dad sent me to pick you up. It took her over an hour to get me, and I didn't get in the car. She was like, I live down the street. If you don't want to get in the car, just follow me to the house. I'll call your dad, and you can tell, he'll tell you this is all legit. So I was never given any lessons to not do this, but she was like, your dad sent me, and I was like, I don't believe you.
You're such a cute kid.
I'm not getting in your car, lady. You're not going to kidnap this boy. But it turned out she was actually just a babysitter, and my dad had, in fact, sent her to pick me up because he had to work late and would not be home to meet me after school. This is so funny. Rock spider.
I don't know who looks like.
I've never heard that term before. What's the term, rock spider?
I'm trying to remember. We'd have to go.
Is that like a rock lobster?
I was going to say we'd have to go back because I don't know who she's referring to.
I just don't
But
know.
it has to be.
It's got to be that.
We Are Vultures is Australian, so I wonder if it's a thing.
The only Australian fake animal I know is the drop bear.
Cute. I feel like I know which one you're talking about with the really terrible tattoos.
I do too.
And in that case, I agree.
It's true. Nurses aren't usually putting in the IV. Most nurses and doctors don't want to participate in lethal injections. So it's like a prison guard doing it. We did not talk about Sean Combs. We kept it at rock and roll because we are
Sean Combs
rock fans.
Wasn't he? Yeah. Wasn't he? It was like enticing minors or something.
He like peed on a 14-year-old.
Yeah, there was some assault stuff, if I recall, a ton of drug stuff, and I think he was. I don't know if it was for prostitution or what, but I think he was trying to get.
The ironically named P. Diddy.
We could do. I think it would be cool to do another video from like different music genres.
So the spiders hide under rocks and pounce on their prey.
Ew. Oh my God, what was that? It was like a movie that came out in the kind of early mid 2000s that was supposed to be like the arachnophobia. Oh, 8-legged freaks. Oh, that reminded me of that.
There's an animal story.
We're vultures. Your dog may be big and get in the way, but little Shirley cat was pacing around, crying and knocking things off the table because she couldn't find the kitten who was hiding from her.
I love animals.
Me too. I love animals so much. They're the best. I would just want 1 million of them. Okay, that's a lot, but
that is a lot.
We found this incredible property in Alaska that there's no way we could afford that. But
amazing.
It was someone had, like, as an attachment to their house, they built this huge outdoor kennel, and it was like this top-notch, gorgeous facility. And it was on this massive property up in the mountains in Alaska that like backed up to the forests. It was gorgeous. I would love to live there.
Australian Task Force for Online Pedophiles, something to do with rock spiders. I don't know.
I guess PDF file is a common switch word on YouTube. See, I'm just so anti-censorship.
Yeah, I refuse.
Like, I just don't. I'm like, you want to demonetize me? Fine. And I probably shouldn't, or I probably should care more. But I'm just like, I don't want to censor myself when talking about these freaks. Like, do you know what I mean? I feel like their victims don't. Why am I protecting freaking pedophiles who prey on children.
Why do I even need a switch word for pedophile? It's dumb.
Yeah, it's
That's
like
dumb.
a psychological term and like sexual term. It's not like some derogatory thing. Like,
I don't like
I just
euphemism.
don't get it.
I don't like euphemism treadmills anyway. There's a thing that I frequently do. A lot of people don't like the word retard of late. And when I see people on Twitter castigate someone for using the word retard, I go to their profile and I search for the words idiot, moron, which are both the word retard before the word retard. They were medical terms used for people. Oh, and dumb is the other one.
Was it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. About
So,
dumb. Huh.
yeah, somebody born deaf, blind, and dumb.
I never put that together. That's so obvious.
Yeah. So I like to search their profiles for those words, and 100% of the time so far, I've never come across anyone castigating other people for using the word retard who themselves does not use the words idiot, moron, dumb. Which to me is they're dumb. It's just there's a phrase, euphemism, treadmill. Why?
The dog just left. He's like, all right, I'm done. Tired of hearing
Done
about
with
these.
done with this podcast.
Sometimes he tries to hurt us. To like, come on, guys.
He does. If I stay up too late, if she'll go to bed and I'm like up working still, he'll come and get me.
He's so sweet.
He comes down to my desk. And
That's a pretty good impression, actually.
come to bed. That's what he's saying. It's bedtime. You're supposed to be in bed. You're not in bed. I'm trying to go to sleep. You're not. I can't. You're giving me anxiety. I want to be upstairs, laying at the foot of the bed. You're in the bed. Mom's in the bed. I want to be in her bed. You're down here. You're typing. I want to go to bed.
And I know what this means. It means it's going to take even longer for you to take me.
Don't say
OUT
it.
the following morning.
Walkies.
I think he like learned how to spell.
No walkies, no peace. That's my joke.
No take, only.
You can imagine a dog out on like a picket line with a sign. No walkies, no peace. No walkies, no peace.
I love dogs.
That's what I imagine the dog doing. In his head, that's what he's doing.
I want more.
As long as I don't have to walk him.
Actually, I have a video or an article I've been working on for a while, about the pets of serial killers.
We have, speaking of virtue signalers, we talked about that quite a bit in the Steve Albini Murder Talk Radio that we did. And I didn't start working on this because of all the people who complained that I talked about communism, but I'm going to enjoy irritating all of the people who complained that I talked about communism. I believe, and I might be wrong, it might be not the next one, but the one after that, because we kind of are a little fast and loose with these. We didn't intend to do this one or the Albini one, but he happened to die. But one of the next Murder Talk radios is going to be on cultural Marxism and how it is described as a myth or a conspiracy theory or an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory when it's just a documented aspect of history and the various revolutions that communism caused in the 20th century. So we're going to do that soonishly. I don't know exactly when, but maybe next week, maybe the week after, maybe 6 months from now.
Another idea for a live. I just spent so much time in the Middle East. I lived there for over a decade growing up, and I keep hearing so many. It's just story after story after story of anti-Semitism. And I have such weird, just this mass of history and weird facts and stuff like that. And I don't know if anyone's interested in hearing that, but I might just sit down and talk about my upbringing and my view on all of that.
Speaking of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, I, as a young man, was what you might call an internet troll. And I spent a lot of time on 4chan, which now, for some reason, is viewed as right-wing. I don't really understand it, but so
that's weird.
Because I was
I
was trollish. When people get irritated by something I do, it just makes me want to do it more. So,
same.
In addition to
literally.
In addition to the cultural Marxism thing, we were working on. We did the UN sponsoring terrorism video about UNRWA and their literal material support that they give to Hamas. And we got a lot of criticism on that from people who don't seem to understand anything about anything.
Nope.
I'm actually going to curse this at the end of this. And they don't understand fuck about all.
They don't.
And so they were like, you don't understand. You should read about the history of blah, 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 blah. So we put together a very, very, very long piece about the history of the conflict between not only Israel and Hamas, but Jews and Muslims. And at some point we'll be doing that. The people who complained about our coverage of the UN will probably not like it very much, which I'm looking forward to.
The thing that pisses me off is that as someone who loves the Middle East, if I tell people, like, actually, I don't straight up say this because it's just a weird thing to just come out and say, but like, I am pro-Israel, and people think that that means you like hate Muslims and Arabs. I'm like, where do you get that from? I don't understand. Like, what about the 20 million Muslim, Arab, Israeli citizens?
2 million.
Sorry, two.
I
just don't understand. Like, religion just complicates things and creates more violence and problems.
In spite of the accusation I faced from random people who've heard random things that they've decided to accuse me of being super religious, I'm actually an atheist. So.
Well, we should wrap this up. It's true, we are vultures. They just parrot things. I'm like, I just like facts. Like, if you can prove me wrong, please do it. Like, when I hear history and facts and just whatever, like, my brain cannot ignore it. I'm not like, I don't have some agenda or whatever. Like, this is how it is.
There's a great example of that in the Albini article, which is, if you look at the comments on that article, lots of people accused us of being wrong about lots of things that we weren't wrong about. And we told almost all of them off. Many of them were banned from Murder PM we do not allow the spreading of misinformation. We're both very fact-based people. And if you spread or attempt to spread misinformation or disinformation on the platform that we control, you will no longer be allowed to spread information there at all. But there was one person who said, hey, you're wrong. This was not put out by Sub Pop, and we fixed that because we were wrong.
Like, we spent a good half hour trying to look at we looked at dozens of different sites to try and figure out where we got
do distribution.
Absolutely.
But it turned out we just got the information from a place that was wrong about where it was put out. And so we fixed that. And we did not ban that person from our publication. We thanked them for correcting us. Because if we're wrong on something, we want to know. Facts matter.
They do. And if people are
despite what you may have heard.
I don't have a problem being wrong about things.
No.
I don't. In fact, if I am, I want to know that I am.
Being wrong is a learning opportunity.
I agree.
That's how I view being wrong.
But people just get super combative.
Yeah, we know the audio and video is out of sync. YouTube, man. YouTube.
I was looking for a photo of my time in well, Jordan specifically, but I came across this.
I will always.
Ironically, this was in Utah for Halloween before, like, oh, it's so funny.
I will always hew towards support for Israel. It's not, blanket support. They can do stuff that I can criticize, but I'm very much not anti-Semitic. I have a lot of Jewish friends. I had a Jewish stepmother growing up. And I don't like caliphate groups. I also remember, and there's video on YouTube that you can find just after 9/11, like the same day, the Palestinians went out in the street and celebrated the murder of 3,000 Americans all day into the night. And the AP photographer who took video of their celebrations was threatened with death if he published those videos. So I encourage you to go watch them because someone, a journalist, put them out anyway. Very brave fellow. I don't know what his name is.
Absolutely.
All right, so I think that about wraps it up for Murder Talk Radio. I'm going to walk the dog again and then go to bed. It's very late.
Where is this bloody photo? We can wrap up this for the podcast, but I'm annoyed. I don't want to find it. If not, I'll just share it next time. It's me as a wee lad sitting on a giant camel.
A wee lad.
Whatever.
Lass.
Yes,
You're a good
lass.
lass.
As a
Wee
wee
lass.
lass. I knew that sounded wrong when I said it. I don't know where it is.
I also, the caliphate groups, people are so ignorant of history, man. I'm a very multicultural. I mean, I myself, my family background is very multicultural. But most recently, the most recent immigrants were from Greece. And Greece was fairly recently, within the last 200 years or so, freed from the control of the Ottoman Empire, which had taken almost all of Greece. I don't ever want to see that happen again, not just to Greece, but to any other part of Europe. No one, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, no one should have to live under an Islamic caliphate. Ever.
Yep.
I actually think that Hamas should have been included, and I don't really understand why they weren't, in the global war on terror. All of this could just not be a thing. We could have killed all of them.
Yeah, I don't that sounds very complicated.
There's a joke
people
I
are like,
make
well, they
sometimes.
were.
Why do we even have an army? Why do we even have it? What's it for?
All right. Well, I found this one of me in front of the Sphinx, but it's not the one I was looking for. Oh well.
You're such a cute kid.
It was so cute. And then as a palate cleanser for the sick stuff we just talked about, here is our sweet puppy dog. I took this of him the other day.
That's a cute photo.
He's super cute. And then you pet him a little, and then he got this really annoyed look on his face.
He sighs at us
He
a
has
lot.
this like, he's a sweet, he's a sweetie though.
He is. He's very sweet.
All right, I'm tired, but thank you guys so much. It's great to see you all here and chat with you.
As enjoyable as it possibly can be to have a 2-hour-long discussion about child predators, it was fun.
I've never actually told that story of the pedophile that followed me, and I feel like maybe I should. It's been a long time since I talked about that.
I'm glad you're looking forward to the next ones. I'm looking forward to doing a long presentation on cultural Marxism to annoy all the Marxists.
Yep.
Interestingly, by the way, Hamas, a lot of people don't know this, but Hamas and the PLO are both Marxist, explicitly Marxist groups.
Duh.
All right, once again, that does it for Murder Talk Radio. We got to get another setup. This is like doing stuff.
We do. We'll figure this out at some point because it's not good.
Next time, we're going to try to get OBS working on this computer. We wanted to have OBS working tonight so that we can show you photos on the full screen without using the phone. But that was not in the cards because
I'm like 0.2
this is a Mac
on my operating system.
and PC Master Race. And PC Master Race. A lot of people don't like the PC Master Race thing. I've heard accusations that that's anti-Semitic, and I think it's the opposite of anti-Semitic because it ridicules Hitler's whole ideal.
Really, in design, you have a Sphinx?
You actually have a choice over whether you own a PC or a Mac. You don't have a choice when you're born to, what culture you're born into. So that's why I like the joke, PC Master Race, because I think it undermines the entire idea, the entire ideology of.
I mean, that's the point, right? It's the better computer.
Nazi racial fascism. It is also the better computer.
I love Sphinx cats. They're so cute. I love their big giant ears. And I love the little, I've watched so many animal videos like constantly. And I watch people give Sphinx cats baths and they put these, they have like shower caps for cats. And it's so cute. Like, but yeah. All right, guys.
This was fun. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.